polishing in Botswana, which we appreciate as one of the beneficiation channels, for down the dairy value chain. Now, polishing in Botswana can actually be 70%, and I hope I'm quoting you right, 70% more expensive than in India, for example. 70% is quite a large number when you think about it. And I'd like you to kind of explain that. Now, from your vantage point, first and foremost, take us back to what you meant when you said that, and then make us have an understanding of what the practical steps are that can be taken for us to address this issue.
From my perspective, what I'd like to do is take you through a journey. And what Tumie has said is, yes, 70%, this was in February. The statistics that we see today, okay? I'm going to talk India, and then I'll go all the way to Africa, and Africa being Botswana. So in order to polish a diamond, it costs the Indians $10 to $12 per carat, okay? China is about $17 US dollars per carat. And Botswana, we sit at $60 to $65 per carat, okay? So that's almost 80%. And I'm using ranges. For those who know me, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. So I'm not going to throw the numbers just out like that. So I'm using ranges here. And depending on where you sit, it could be between that 10 to 12 or even a little higher, let's say $10 to $25 for India. Vietnam, on the other hand, taking into account quality, would sit between the 60 to 65 that we're looking at in Botswana and possibly the 17 that we're looking at in China, right? So if we are to say, are we competitive in the market as Botswana? No. And we never will be, okay? Reason being is we're extremely expensive in terms of polishing, and I'm sure Lesego will corroborate on that, right? And I think coming back to Tumie's point is, let's put out a problem statement. Why are we that expensive, okay? Why? One, economies of scale. We don't polish enough diamonds in this country to actually leverage our economies of scale compared to the likes of China and India. And now Vietnam is coming onto the market. But Vietnam will always be more expensive because they are trying to get the quality right. Whereas the other guys, not so much. And sorry, I'm not shooting you. I'm not fighting with you here at the moment. Because Venus is affiliated with India, but it's about the quality at the end of the day. And they also benefit from economies of scale, right? Again, it costs us more in Botswana. It takes 4 polishers to polish, as opposed to India, where you're looking at 1 polisher per the number of carats we're talking about, right? So again, capital costs very, very high in terms of resource and also setting up the factories here, right? When I talk to factories, I look at the gentleman on my right here. How are we as a country helping these factories survive, right? Because it's getting expensive, and they talked about an elephant in the room this morning. We've got this 37% tariff coming on. What does that mean for the industry, right? It's going to be devastating if that doesn't get scrapped, or even if it gets lower, other countries are lower than us, right? So we need to manage that, okay? So that's basically your tariffs. You've got the cost of your resources being the people, and, economies of scale. How do we compete, right? And there'll be a lot that will be said in terms of how do we compete. Do we want to compete as a country? I don't know. I'm going to say, let's woosah here. When things go wrong in the world, everything is going wrong right now. We talk about synthetics. 50% of our market share in Botswana has gone to synthetics, okay? Do we want to participate in the market that is not wanting to buy from us? So I'd actually pause here and say, no. I'd actually say, in as much as we've stated the problem statement here in terms of cost, capital, whatever it is, and obviously government intervention, we're private sector. We should think differently. Do we really want to furnish the low-cost elements of the market? No. There's a bigger market there, and there's an emerging market right now that we see. It's the likes of China. People say China's not buying, but there's a lot of billionaires in China. In fact, they're the second richest in the world, right, in terms of billionaires, right? They have the second largest population of billionaires in China. They want to buy our diamonds. People want to buy natural diamonds. So when people tell me that, synthetics are competing, yeah, it depends on which market you want to furnish. I'm saying as Botswana, do we really want to furnish the market that doesn't want us? No. We should move, go to an emerging market, the likes of China, You know, the Middle Eastern areas, the UAE, Qatar, Saudi, they're willing to buy real diamonds. Again, coming back to statistics, 2/3 of the population, millennials, Gen Z, highest buying power right now. Or should I say the highest buying power is 2/3 of that population, right? That's who we want to sell to. You know, we talked a little about mining tourism. They want an experience and they're willing to pay the price. So I think for me, you know, when I talk to this here, and I'll probably give it to the other panelists to talk to about is, we as a country need to determine where we want to sit in the market. And right now, we want to brand the Botswana diamond. When you brand, there's an uplift in price. So what do? Invest in technology so that we can use individuals to start doing the tail end. And again, you know, it's a very long story to me, in the sense that we don't have enough polishers in country that can polish the diamonds that we produce, the 10.8 carats and above, right? It's a very niche market. So how do we get the young and upcoming generation involved in it? It's through technology, right? That is the only thing that's going to help us. And where do we want to position ourselves in the market? And for me right now, where I sit, it's the high end, because their price doesn't matter. You can upskill and the entire value chain benefits. The person that's polishing is going to get a higher salary. The person that's actually supervising gets a higher salary, right? You sell to the brands, there's a complete uplift there. I mean, I'll talk about the arrangement with us in HP. We used to participate in rough only. Now we participate in polished. We get the uplift of polished, and so does the government.
I'm gonna stop you there, Naseem, because I do have other questions for you as we go along. Okay, but maybe let me then bring in Lesego here, you know, and perhaps you can then give, you know, your experience, maybe from a global perspective of Venus Jewel. What you think, based on, you know, what you know already, and of course the insights that Naseem has been sharing right now. From your perspective, you know, what structural or policy changes could actually make Botswana a more attractive and sustainable hub, particularly for premium diamond processing?
Thank you, Tumie, for that question. Good afternoon. There's been a lot of talk around Botswana participating in the diamond beneficiation. My background is I have been in the industry for quite a while at the policy level. And even as far back as 2009-8, we're still talking about diamond beneficiation. But we haven't moved much as a country, you know. So Naseem's point, where exactly do we want to play in the value chain? And part of what I have seen as a challenge operating an international company and a subsidiary of an international diamond international company is the issue of skills. Because that is a huge cost in terms of labor, what adds to the cost that she has just brought up. So how then, as a country, do we plan to be competitive if we are not investing early into skill development for diamond beneficiation? It is a challenge that we need to tackle very urgently. And I think my colleague, Soli, will probably give us a prelude in terms of what policies they have. And I will add to that later in the conversation. But for me, the issue of skills, and somebody can say, so we've had factories in Botswana now for the last 15 years. Two things that I need to share with everybody here today is, unfortunately, the nature of the diamond polishing industry is that even if somebody's in the industry for 10, 12 years, doesn't mean they're a master polisher. And what makes us more expensive in this case is that you find the 4 polishers, local polishers that she's talking about, versus the 1 expatriate, is the issue of what are they polishing? You know, is somebody doing tops, facetting, bottoms? So they are not exactly a full stone polisher. So they're not taking the diamond from the rough to the end. So 10 people would work on a stone versus an expatriate with 40 years who is able to do the job of more than 5, 6. That's the reality on the ground. And the second thing is, you know, Botswana has just been rated as one of the most expensive in terms of cost of living. That obviously impacts in terms of utility, salaries, our rentals and that. And the question to the government is, in that case, where do they see the delay in implementing the policy that can reduce the cost of manufacturing in Botswana if we really want to be competitive in this industry? Because we are all sitting here saying we are still not competitive to India, yet we have the mines in the background. But of course, that shows we haven't got those, the competitive urge that we think we'll have by having the mines in the background. That's the reality.
But is that for government to deal with? And this is before I come to you, Soli, because I think the spotlight is definitely on you. Is it for government or is it for the private sector or the industry to push towards? And this is for all of you to really ponder on, and we'll come back to that. Soli, you are definitely on the spotlight. We've been talking and talking, and the needle doesn't seem to be moving as fast as we expected to. What were your expectations? What are the barriers? Why aren't we moving fast enough? And what ought to be done going forward?
Thank you, Tumie. I think from the Diamond Hub perspective, we exist to coordinate, facilitate, and promote the midstream to downstream diamond value chain. This is really in line to achieve the objectives of the 2022 minerals policy, which is to transform Botswana into a competitive world diamond center. So the policy objective sets out that ambition. And you would have heard earlier on our minister talking about how this next step change is going to take place. We have built into this new agreement with De Beers specific initiatives to address exactly what my two colleagues have been talking to. Specifically, when we talk about skills development and talent development, he is a specific initiative to make sure that Botswana has a Diamond Vocational Training Institute. This is something that is a deliberate agreement in the new agreements that we've signed with De Beers. So that's number one, to address not only the shortage of skills, but the competency. Because you'll find that even with the skills that we've got available, their level of productivity is not at the same level our competitor diamond centers are at. So this is one deliberate action that we're doing from a government perspective and our partners, De Beers, in terms of addressing that specifically. Another one that Naseem talked to is, where are we participating in terms of our product? We are trying to get to a point where the premium of Botswana diamond is actually now can be embedded in the price, which is why in terms of the marketing of Botswana and Botswana's story, we felt it was very necessary for Botswana delegation to really show up at the JCK and enhance that marketability of Botswana diamonds. So that's another deliberate action that's coming out in terms of our category marketing for demand of natural diamonds, obviously to differentiate between natural and synthetics. That is an ongoing initiative that is already taken off. And then obviously to also hone into what Botswana value can add to our diamonds specifically, so that that premium, we can actually use that premium to offset the actual cost that we have on our underlying base.
All right, maybe I should then bring you in here, Boaz, and now more looking towards, I guess the future, right? Everybody talks about technology right now, and surely as we move into the future, there'll be so much more in terms of usage of technology. You use technology in diamond sourcing and processing. How do you reckon the future needs to look, particularly where Botswana is concerned, so that we are really able, to get into a tech-driven beneficiation model of sorts?
For this question to me, and an opportunity. By the way, thank you everybody for coming back from lunch. And yeah, all right, they're alive. You wanted to make sure they're alive, they're alive. I'm so happy to sit here and have the opportunity to speak with you, and also to sit here among beautiful ladies. The previous panel, it was all men. So thank you for the organizers for making the voice of ladies heard. You talked about technologies, and indeed HB, which established itself 5 years ago, looked at the diamond industry as an industry that is ripe for disruption and ripe for change. And we believed that that change can be implemented once the industry realizes that the origin matters, okay? And when we are asking ourselves, how can we actually celebrate origin and tell the story in a different way? The only way to actually make it happen is by starting to produce more of the value in the origin itself. And that's what we are here to talk about. How do we actually benefit the country of origin? And our philosophy is very simple. Diamonds belong to the country of origin. We have to do more here. How can we do more here when for 500 years we've developed an industry that is leaning on the know-how elsewhere? The only solution for that is technology. So instead of talking, we just took ourselves and we made an action plan, and we brought technology into Botswana. We heavily invested in the facility that we established here. We heavily invested in the collaboration that we have with Lucara. And we have shown in 5 short years that we can actually do, based on technology, much more than has been done before. So we've heard this story for many, many years on how companies should produce more here, but it was said that it was impossible because there was no know-how, and to teach the people was just too difficult. So
I want to understand what this really means. How about you just paint a picture of exactly what this looks like?
So basically, in diamond processing, you have different stages, and those stages require a very meticulous work aided by technologies. For example, in order to analyze a stone, you need to scan it, you need to actually go into the scans, create plottings out of them, then go into the plotting and understand what are the inclusions in every single stone. Some stones are extremely complicated. Those that are yielding the most value are very complicated. You have to have measuring devices, optics, laser devices that will be able to actually execute the plans that you have foreseen. All of those different phases, and we are counting around 12 different phases in the production of diamonds, can be done once you are aiding them with technologies by fairly light-skilled personnel that will be skilled or upskilled to the abilities by the technology providers, by us. So we collaborated with universities in Botswana. We've hired graduates. We took them through a journey of bringing them up to speed with our technologies. And then they came back to their motherland. And today in our facility work 52 employees, 50 of which are Botswanans that came with no prior knowledge of diamond processing. Thank you.
So still on the topic of traceability, which I know even Naseem had spoken about earlier, I want to get from you, Lesego, especially that you actually get to deal with the markets somehow, how important really is it? And I think even Soli spoke about, the fact that he spoke about being able to talk about country of origin, to proudly talk about, a diamond from Botswana, mined and ethically sourced and responsibly mined, right? How important is it though to the customer? How is for you to penetrate the global market? And what do you think we should be focusing on to ensure that we get to where we want to be going?
The issue of traceability is absolutely critical, and now more, especially for the customers that we serve. Because really, what we're doing here is trying to differentiate Botswana diamonds from all the other diamonds. And of course, our story has been told over the years of ethical sourcing, provenance, the importance of that. But with the newer generation, we're finding that to be even more and more critical. And that is where, of course, we need to reinforce the offer, which is our value proposition as a country, that what we are offering, it needs to be communicated, and that is where the issue of traceability plays a really important part in terms of the value chain, being able to say this diamond was mined in Botswana, polished in Botswana, if the rest of the value chain happens here or not. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that our biggest rough supplier, being ODC, of course, have joined into Tracer. So what that means is, every diamond that will be over 1 carat leaving Botswana, you'll be able to track it through the whole value chain. So, the mining up to client. And there is the linkage that we also need to position into our customers to say, where did this diamond come from? What is it done? So our story is critical in terms of, how we position and use those platforms, the Tracer and the others. I think, Naseem, you've got other platforms, Clara, to track. So that's very critical.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a simple question, because you've highlighted, Boaz, the students that ups the skilling that you've been able to do, technology, and technology that actually helps with the tracing. The tracing, you've made very clear, Lesego, that that is what the market is demanding. But I want to bring it back to the subject of beneficiation, right? If a child or anyone really is listening to us right now, how are they going to take out that we think that through all of these, there is, there's a chance for growth in beneficiation? Because that is a subject, right? We want to build the beneficiation sector. You've explained, Naseem, what the challenges are. You've talked about the fact that it's not competitive, etc. But I want to understand myself that where is the opportunity for beneficiation along with the tracing, along with the global markets, etc.
Okay, thank you for that, Tumie. I think I can't say it's an easy but difficult answer here. In every industry, you need to talk about a bottom line, right? So every company comes in here with a bottom line to understand what you need to do. And I always say, why are our diamonds going out of the country when we can process them in country, right? Coming back to what Boaz is saying, and sorry, a little long-winded, but I'll get to the answer right now. We started off with school fees that we in the mining industry paid for. We sold it for $53.1 million US, okay? Valued now 3 times the value that the rough was bought at, right? We as Botswana didn't benefit from it. Lucara, being the private company, did not benefit from it. The government did not benefit from it, from royalties, right? Because we pay 10% royalties on our sale, right? So what do we want to do differently now is we need to, and I'm not going to look at government here. You see, I'm actually facing this way. We as private sector need to make a conscious decision, and a deliberate one, and intentional, to be honest, of where we want to go and how we want to go. And it's about value, it's about the value chain. It's to create opportunities at absolutely every avenue of the value chain. And this is very, very critical, right? So in answering your question, how does my kids that's listening to me right now, because I'm also here sitting and preparing a future for my children, how does my kid participate in this value chain? And that's a simple answer. The simple answer is they participate in absolutely every process of the value chain, whether it be in polishing, whether it be in designing of clothes, right? Because beauty is, diamonds is not just diamonds. It has a ripple effect on all the value chains. Design, jewelry, I'm going to polish a stone. Where is this stone going to be set? And I think for us, as private sector now, I'm going to look at you, as a partnership with government, is to put in incentives in place for investors to come in. And we're talking branding the Botswana diamond here, right? We need to brand the Botswana diamond, which we're almost there. I don't think we're there yet, but we're almost there. People need to understand, firstly, where Botswana is in Africa. understand the ethical mining that occurs here, responsible, sustainable mining, safely mined diamonds, and then obviously, what do we do with those diamonds, right? What happens in country with those diamonds? We should not allow the money to leave the country. And in saying that, we need to get the investors in because we do need foreign investment. We need foreign ideas to come in. We need to understand how to do this. So this is where I'm looking at the airport now, to bring them in so they can impart the knowledge to Botswana. And obviously, coupled with that, you'll make money, so will Botswana. And it's coming back to what the minister said earlier on, where now we're moving the 15% of shares that the government can participate in to 24%. And they're giving the benefit to Botswana that can participate as well. And things like that will help Botswana participate in industries that they never thought they'd be able to participate in.
And when you talk about participation, I mean, there's always the issue of access to capital. The industry is not a cheap industry, right? And this becomes a very big barrier for a lot of local entrepreneurs. But if we're talking about smart partnerships as we sit here, how do we address that? Maybe from your perspective, Soli, and then I'll just take it around to all of you to just respond to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Tumie. Just to add on what Naseem was saying, we need to look at, when we talk about beneficiation, we need to look at the entire ecosystem. I think when we talk about beneficiation and value chain, we tend to look at it in a very linear sort of way. But we need to look at the entire cluster and the entire ecosystem around the diamond value chain. Because if we talk about the diamond entrepreneurship program, we want to look at what are the other ancillary businesses that can support the diamond industry. Not necessarily just the cutting and the polishing. Naseem alluded to the fashion industry, which is obviously a big part of the luxury space. What are we doing with that in terms of as an entrepreneur? There's opportunity from the Diamonds for Development Fund that is looking at exactly that. How do entrepreneurs now come to the party? As government, we really want private sector-led solutions because everything has to make sense and make commercial sense. If it's government-led, you find that there is a lot of subsidizing, and when it comes to competing commercially, internationally, then that value proposition does not hold water. So we want a lot of private sector-led. The Diamonds for Development Fund will be looking at what are those entities that we can support that will have commercial viability but supporting the industry. In terms of, just the history of the factories setting up in Botswana, we have done relatively well. I think our incentives in the special economic zone are one of best in class in terms of attracting foreign investment. Access to capital, we have to acknowledge that it's still a bit tricky. We are engaging, the various financial institutions locally, the pension funds locally, especially on the private equity side, because we found that that is where there is more patient capital, if you want to call it that, that can look deep dive into the actual risk mitigation that needs to be in place for the diamond industry. As I said, we have done relatively well. In 2021, we had 21 factories. That grew almost double to 52 factories in 2023. Of course, right now in 2025, there's a bit of a slowdown given the challenges that we've had in the diamond market. But let's give ourselves...
How many, are there any that are locally owned?
Well, look, some are not completely closed down. They've mothballed in terms of just waiting for that recovery that we want to see from the diamond industry. So we cannot really say at the moment that we've got these number operating, this is closed down for a fact. But we are seeing numbers that are quite worrying in terms of the current situation. But we are optimistic that we are seeing green shoots. We're seeing a lot of optimism in terms of the natural diamond space. We're seeing the differentiation between the synthetics and the naturals really coming through to the fore. The synthetics will always have their own market. I think that's a fact. We need to accept that. and accept that they will be here. How we promote our natural diamonds is going to be now for us to really take that forward.
All right. I had asked a question that I wanted all of you to respond to, but I realized Pena has been walking around the room, I think, trying to get my attention for us to wind down. But I do have some kind of liberty, if you say, because I mean, I'm steering this ship. Is anybody really compelled to want to ask a question at this stage? Because I will only take 2 questions. Going once, twice, and that's it. All right, now I'm gonna ask you all to wrap up. I really do want us to be thinking about smart partnerships as we go forward, just to stick to the theme of the summit here. But if you could do one thing, right? If you could prioritize or pick one key action that you believe is critical for us to address this issue of, the challenges that you spoke about earlier, Naseem, and everybody else, and also just to look at us building a globally competitive beneficiation sector. What is that one key priority thing that you think, and this is to all of you, by the way, we should be thinking about in the next 18 to 24 months? And I'm giving you literally 30 seconds to respond. Boaz?
Start with me.
Yeah. You're next to me.
I think that it's a fantastic one, and I want to look ourselves straight in the eye and say something very simple. As an industry, we failed so far.
As an industry, we failed.
As an industry, we failed so far. As a diamond industry, we failed. We did not do a good job because we are not able to actually create a product that is desired anymore and that is able to achieve premiums and to appreciate itself going forward. Who is actually doing great? The luxury market. But unfortunately, the diamond industry has been left out. It is not part of the luxury market, and it is failing to actually take part in 80% of the value creation of the products that are actually extracted here. But the equation is very simple. If you own the story of a region, you own the value. Okay, Botswana owns the story of a region, but we need to be able to tell the story. How can we tell the story? Through the product. How can we tell the story through a product, through technology, and through differentiation of a product that is fully authenticated and is verifiable by the end consumer? If the end consumer starts believing in this product again, and believing that this product is different, there's plenty of demand in the world for natural diamonds, and a demand that is able to actually pay a much higher premium. Nobody said that the end consumer market that is buying diamonds should be only $80 or $90 billion. It could be 2 or 3 times that much, because this product is next to none. And the beauty or the future of mining is not in mining. This whole event is talking about mining or the future of mining. The future of mining is the beneficiation that goes along the chain of value that comes afterwards. And that's the future.
Thank you, Boaz. Over to you, Naseem.
I thought you were going to tell us. My thoughts are very simple here. It's about where do we want to participate? We have a great product. We live in a great country. What better story to tell than the Botswana story? And with that, we get value. And for me, it's to tap into the downstream activities all the way to being on Paris Fashion Week, but in Botswana. It's going to be called the Botswana Fashion Week, with Botswana diamonds, with Botswana designers, absolutely authentically Botswana. And I think, in 30 seconds, I just wanted authentically Botswana, produced in Botswana. Nothing should leave us. And coming back to a comment that you made, I took it personally, just by the way. Synthetics can never compete with us. We should allow them to be these synthetics where they are. There is a demand out there for our natural diamonds, the Botswana diamonds. So let's be authentic about that and deliberately do something about it. This is the opportunity. In the 12 to 24 months or 18 months that you're talking about, we should be deliberate and make sure that we are tapping into a market that nobody can tap into but us, because we have the leverage because of the diamonds that we produce.
Solomon?
Can I close?
Thank you, Tumie. I think my two panelists couldn't have said it better. We need to own that narrative. We recently launched our House of Botswana and the Botswana mark at JCK. The Botswana mark is talking to exactly what Naseem was talking about in terms of our organic luxury. We have not been participating in the luxury growth, if you want to call it that. But now is our time. And in terms of what you will be seeing in the next 6 to 12 months, mark my words, you'll be excited. I think we have started on a good footing, and we have realized that as Botswana, we really need to step up to the plate and take control of our narrative. We have a perfect product that we have not been really realizing that value from, and now is the time.
Now is the time.
How is it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moremong. Over to you, Lesego.
Okay. I've had an experience over the years on how I removed diamonds from us as Botswana. And that's a really huge gap. And as we sit here, financiers, partners, government, the question is, how are we bringing Botswana to the party? Of course, we were at JCK. Of course, the international market probably knows more about our diamonds than we do. By the show of hands, may I kindly ask, how many of you have ever seen a diamond?
7.
Oh, that's a lot more than I thought.
That's good.
So in closing, I would like to challenge the narrative and say, a lot of us here are probably in our 50s. Sorry if I don't want to offend anybody. But imagine if you had actually had contact with the diamond at an early age. Maybe you would have thought of a business. Maybe you would have looked at it differently and interrogated it more, wanted to learn more about it, so that you are the ambassador of your own story. We don't need international people to talk about our diamonds. They are our diamonds. We need to be able to be confident, and we carry the message out there. So for me, that's really what's important to me, is the education and bringing Botswana with them, to the diamond story.
And that's it from our esteemed panelists. I think the conversation can certainly continue beyond this room. For those of you who did indicate that they have never actually seen a diamond with their 2 eyes, I do invite you to the exhibition hall, to the De Beers group stand, because real, natural diamonds straight from the earth of Botswana are here at the Future of Mining Summit. But over and above that, thank you very much. I do appreciate the round of applause. But over and above that, just to add to what Lesego said about, owning a little bit of Botswana in you, if we can get ourselves into the habit of wearing our natural diamonds. When we talk about, beneficiation here, it's about all the way to the downstream, making sure that, we gift each other with rings and earrings and jewelry. We must all be clad in a little bit of Botswana everywhere we go. That's how we become the special ambassadors. That's how we become closer to the diamonds. But as our panelists have said, thank you for your insights. The value is really created along the chain, and there's so much that can be done. And we look forward to maybe the next 24 months where we can see just how far we have come in terms of being competitive and, of course, local participation. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.